We appreciate you being here, since this program is optional and discusses best practices for your consideration. If you are thinking of adopting any of them, please make sure to review the requirements in your area/region with your broker, branch manager, or manager, including those related to contacting consumers. We do want to highlight the importance of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, better known as TCPA. The general rules are that it's okay to call people if the person recently gave you their phone number, but remember to check the DNC list regularly if they haven't spoken to that person in a while. You will also want to check the DNC list anytime you don't have permission. Automated calling/texting platforms should never be used. Pre-recorded messages and artificial voices should never be used. You will be personally liable for any violations of the TCPA. We'll mention the TCPA a few times throughout this presentation.
Hello everyone, in this quick video tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a market report using Prospect Score. Starting off at the home screen, we're going to go ahead and take our cursor, move on over to the left side, click on reports, and then click on market report. Now if you don't see this menu for whatever reason, that's perfectly okay. Just take your cursor up to the top left corner, go ahead, hit the three lines, and your menu will then populate it. With that said, let's go ahead and hit the market report link. Okay, so now this is going to be our market report home screen. I'm going to go ahead and minimize the menu so we have a little bit more room to play with, if you will. And to start off, we're going to go ahead to the middle of our screen and select the blue new button. Okay, now this is going to be essentially our entry form for generating a market report. First off, we're going to go ahead and create our report name. I'm just going to put test report here. Just as a note, this report name is internal. The client or the individual that you are sending this report to won't see the report name. I'm going to come back to the criteria. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of this report. Contacts, this is where you can go ahead and place in all your contacts. So let's go ahead. I'll create a new one here. And actually, while I'm typing in the name here, I'm going to go ahead and type in one that I always love to use, especially if you're going to be posting these on social media. This way, right, you have a generic name so that if somebody clicks on it, it's not going to say Dear Bill or Dear John, Dear Sally, whatever it may be, right? It's just going to have a very general name. So, right, we have our first name, we have our last name. You can see the salutation, right? So it says Hi Community Neighbor. We'll get back to that report here. Sorry about that. And then if you want to put them in a group, you can put them in a group. Put this person in the community group. And then we can go ahead and type in a email. Now, once we have those three things typed in, we're ready to go. Go ahead, hit the save and close option. Right, our record's now created. And once this populates in, you'll see that we have our community neighbor contact. Now, if you want to add a group of contacts, you can go ahead, you can select the browse option, select for search, and then you can select the group that you want to feature. So go ahead and pick my group here, select the search icon, and then I can keep picking out the contacts that I want to use. Additionally, I can always just click on this icon up here in the top left, and that'll select all the contacts on a given page. And so there's up to 50 in page if you have to keep going through. So maybe one of your groups has more than 50 contacts. You're just going to keep hitting the side buttons here that'll populate in. You'll just select them all on every page. Now, next up we have our email intro. And with that said, there are 4 different types of intros that you can have. You have one for buyer, seller, prospect, and investor. Find the one that works best for you, and then you can go ahead and make that alteration to it. You can always click inside the reports themselves as well to make those edits too if you want to. The really neat thing is that it also gives you a character count as well, so you know how close you are to the limit. So in this case, we have up to 1,024 characters. If you ever need to restore it to the default, you can. Once you're done editing, anything that you want to change up here, go ahead and hit save and close. If you just want to keep it as is, just go ahead and hit cancel. You can also do this for the follow-up reports as well. With market reports, they go out based off of your time frame, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Okay, so we have our report title. Right now, people will see this, so we'll just call this, sample title. We have a report intro, and the really neat thing about Prospect Squared too is if that you ever have a question about what something is, a lot of the times you'll see these circles with the question mark on them. You can just hover over them. And in this case, right, mentioning using this field to provide additional insight about this report. And you'll see this is a little bit further down from that intro paragraph. So let's just put, this is where the report intro would go. Or just so you can see kind of the layout of things. We have the hide automated market value. You can click yes or no. That's up to you. Although if an individual wants to see what the automated market value is, they can always just click on an icon right there. Now the send frequency. So this is where things get different from our area and quarterly reports, which are automatically set to given times. Quarterly reports being every quarter, the monthly reports or area reports being every month. Now with the new market reports, the length, as far as like in between when those campaigns go out, it's up to you. You can go ahead, you can select the send frequency, and you can see that you can pick the number of days in between each time a report will go out automatically on your behalf. So it goes all the way from every day to once a year. So maybe somewhere in the middle, right? Maybe it's at 30 days is a good one. Now we have the maximum number of listings featured on a given report. Let's see, we can go from anywhere from 25 to 100. So especially if you're using a bigger area, right, that might be the way to go. Copy agent on report. If you select no, right, you don't get a copy. If you select yes, you will. Just a quick note that if you are sending a report out to 50 different people, even if it is the same report, you're going to get 50 different copies emailed to you. And that's just because in the future, right, you can edit any of these reports to fit that particular person, so they keep them individual. So just keep that in mind. If you're sending it to a large group, the best bet's usually just to add yourself to that group. We have our report expiration. So if you're working with somebody and you want to stop sending them reports at a certain time, maybe it's the end of the year, I can just kind of move through the calendar and then select that date. So let's go ahead. And that could be any date. And then we have our subject lines, which you can change. And then we have our market report cover page image. Once again, you can go ahead, you can select the browse option and find a different image that you want. The great thing about this is that Coldwell Banker already has a lot of different photos in there for you to search from and select. Okay. With that said, let's get to the criteria, the real meat and potatoes, as I mentioned before, of the market report. So if I go ahead and select edit, there's a couple of different ways in which I can do this. So first up is the radius, right? So you can use an address, you can use an MLS number as your focal point here to search from. Now, with that said, if I scroll a little bit further down, you can see we've got our on market, and these will be the parameters that you set for the properties that are going to be featuring on your report. The one thing I will say is that each MLS is different, so just keep that in mind. So you might have different options underneath on market, sold closed, off market, etc. With that said, right, you can always hit the drop down to see how far back you want to go for a particular listing, whether that's from actives to solds and so forth. You can also pare down your results by listing price, property type, location. So the great thing about this is if you're working with a client who has a very specific set of listings that they're looking for, right, you can really be specific when it comes to creating this report. Once you've got everything done, you would go ahead and hit OK. The one thing, though, is for a lot of us who are using farms, right, those neighborhoods are not necessarily perfect circles, if you will, because essentially that's what we're doing here with a radius search, and you can change that in size. But a lot of the neighborhoods that we work, they are, odd shapes, right? So, maybe they hook around a street here. So we want to have that flexibility to make that edit, right? Make that awkward shape, if you will. So this is going to be our map search. And first things first, you can go ahead and minimize this. For the offices that have multiple MLSs assigned to them, you'll see that right up here in the top. The one thing that I'll just call out is that just make sure that you're on the correct MLS, right? You want the results that are the most accurate. So, right, if you're in a different MLS, they might not have all the listings that they have in the standard MLS for that area. So again, just keep that in mind. And the thing is, you're going to want to do that first, because once you switch the MLS, all your results, right, are going to reset, or any kind of drawing you have is going to reset here on the map. Now, with that said, I just went ahead and minimized this menu here so I can have a little bit more room to roam in regards to drawing our map. What I'm going to do in this instance is I'm going to take my cursor and I'm going to go to the top right of our window. And let's just say, right, I want to go by Balboa here in Newport. I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in. Now, if I want to move anywhere in my map, I can zoom in by hitting the plus button. I can zoom out by hitting the minus button. If I want to move east, west, north, south, I can just click and hold. You can see how my cursor is now a hand. And then just move around as you see fit. I'm going to zoom back in here. I'm just going to get a little bit closer. And I'm actually going to go to Lido Isle here in Newport. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is draw the shape that I want to pull for all my listings. Now I can do a rectangle, I can do a circle, right? I think they're pretty standard. You can just click, hold, and then let go, and I'll let you name your area. Circle looks a little something like that, right? And again, cancel. And again, in this case, I'm just drawing and then moving the cursor to determine how big my shape is going to be and where I want to pull those listings from. But the tool I feel like most folks would use within this market report is this polygon tool. It's the last shape here. Go ahead and click that. So in this case, right, I have Lido Isle right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here at the corner and then click. Now, once you click, right, that pretty much just sits down at anchor point, and you're going to go ahead and move. All right, and you'll start seeing that I have a little bit of a black line trailing my cursor. Now, once you want to go ahead and change directions, you're going to go ahead and click on that mouse again, right? And then you're going to keep doing that as you kind of outline our island here. And then essentially you're going to keep repeating it until you get to your original point. Once you've got that all set, go ahead, click again, and now we're ready to name our area. So again, you're clicking, you're moving until you want to change directions. Click again, and then just keep repeating that until you get to your beginning part. So right now, I'm just going to name our community. So in this case, right, Lido Isle. Right, and the neat thing is, right, it's going to pull results automatically from the past 6 months. So you can see all of our different listings here. Okay, so now that I have my report kind of drawn out, the area that I want to use, now I can start getting into those parameters again. So with that said, right, the great thing is Lido Isle, what I have here, the area that I drew out, that's always going to be saved. So I can always just go back to it, check that box off, and it'll draw that area for me on its own. Now, as I go down, this is where I can start selecting the different parameters I want. Now for sold close, maybe I don't want to go 6 months back. Maybe I only want to go 3. I can go ahead and select 90, and then I'll update once I go ahead and hit OK. There's also another way in which you can update the numbers here just so you can see where you're at. Now you can also do this for off market, pending. If you want to put in a price, you can. If you want to put in property type, so this could be residential, so you don't have to worry about leases. Your subtypes, so that could be single family residence. And then when it comes down to this area, I typically tend to think that less is more. You don't know how another agent might enter something into the MLS. So again, better just to kind of keep that clean. Okay, or at least that's just a tip. Now, with that said, if you ever want to adjust any bits, you can see maybe I wanted to kind of just extend this map a little bit up here. So I'm just clicking and holding the anchor point, one of the white circles, and then just moving it up. And the neat thing is too, right, this will also update your numbers. So we went from 66 to 56. So now I'm going to go ahead and select OK. And our criteria now is set here. And now we're ready to take a look at our market report. So we're going to go ahead and hit the preview option. We'll let this generate in for us. So at the top, we have our cover image, right? This was the piece down on the bottom. Now, if I want to scroll a little bit further down, where we have our market report, there's that sample title, community neighbors. So there's our salutation, there's our intro paragraph, right? We have that area where like this is a report intro, this is where that would go. Additionally, right, you can convert this and print this out as a PDF. You know, that's great, especially if you have to host an open house, right? Which is a great piece to have. If you want to share this on social media, it's a pretty quick way to feature that as well. So, for example, you can essentially just go right to Facebook. So if I selected share to social media, head to Facebook, right? It already drafts up the image, right? So your test report, this is where you could rename it. So this is where, again, you can type in your message. Now, if I scroll a little bit further down, right, we have our other options and contact me and forward to a friend. So this is what the recipient would see. So if they say contact me, this would be contacting you, the agent. If they wanted to forward this over to a friend, they could do that too. As you scroll down, right, we have our map drawing of what you highlighted, right? So pretty great in the fact that it's really specific about the area so that people can really see what the market is like in their particular area. Right, we talked about that market value to see what it looks like. So you can always click on that, right? And that's for a great home evaluation. So again, just another way in which you maybe can generate a lead or two, or at least some more information from somebody that's already in your sphere. We have our market snapshot. So right, then you can see all the different stats, right? And then you'll see the particular listings featured in our for sales, pendings, recent sales as well. And the great thing is these will be clickable links that you can select and highlight so that an individual can see more details about any given listing. What I think is also really neat about the market reports in this facet is that if somebody clicks on the address or the MLS number or that, whatever it may be, it's going to look a little bit different in each person's neck of the woods. That tracks that in our analytics. So this way you can start seeing what people are clicking on. So that this way you can say like, okay, client A is looking at 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I can tell that because that's what they're looking at within the report. So this might give you an idea of what somebody in your sphere who maybe is not looking for a home might be starting to think about. Looking at potential places to buy, or maybe they're thinking about selling their home and they want to see what similar homes to theirs are looking like or selling for. So again, just things to keep in mind. Now, once we've gone ahead and finished taking a look at everything looks great to us, I can go ahead and just hit the X icon in the top right. And then if I want to save this as a draft, I can select this as save draft. If I want to hit save and send, I can go ahead and then hit save and send, and then that'll send it out for me. So in this instance, right, I'll go ahead and hit save and send. Right, so we have our report. If you ever want to see what the properties are like, you can go ahead and select view properties at a given point. The great thing is these reports are just the market reports that are gonna consistently update on their own. So I think that's a really neat piece too, so you can always see what it's looking like. If you ever need to resend it, maybe somebody accidentally deleted it, you can click on this envelope here where it says send report now. If you want to just take a look at what the report looks like at a given point in time, you can go ahead, you can click on that. If you want to delete a report for whatever reason, you can do that. And then if you want to go back and edit it, you can do that too. So just note that as we get to the reports, and if you're sending it out to multiple people, right, you're going to get multiple reports down here. You're going to get one line item or one row for each report that you send out. So just keep that in mind. With that said, that's today's quick tip on how to create a market report using Prospect Square. Now, once I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and drop down this menu again that we dropped down right off the bat. Any area that you draw is going to be saved and set right here. And now I can start looking at my parameters. So close. So by default, right, it's going to go back 6 months. Maybe I want to go back 9 months or 3 months, excuse me. So then I can go ahead and just change that. Off markets, pendings, etc. List price. If I want to set a price, I could do that too. Property. If I want to do residential, so this way, right, I don't have to worry about leases. Subtype, right? You can see all the different subtypes here. So I want to do single family, right? I can select single family. Now you can also go further down below, but I feel like when it comes to like certain reports, right, bed and bath, right, for the most part, is pretty ambiguous when it comes to it. So I feel like you could save, like, if you want to do like 3-5, great. Although sometimes people say, well, that's a bed, but it's kind of an office. Like, how do you include that? So I tend to think that less is more when it comes down to some of the elements down here on the bottom. Now, once we're all set, we like our report, we like the number, we can go ahead and then hit OK. But actually, I do see one thing here at the island that's probably a good point to pick out here. So you can see that I don't have the entire island highlighted, like I missed a little bit of land here. If you ever want to just go back, you can take any of those anchor points and you can just move them as well. And I'll also say the really neat thing is too, you'll also see that kind of the numbers just refreshed. So then this way, right, you can get an updated count too. So if you remember, I changed the sales, so I didn't go back 6 months, I only went 3.